Hey guys, I'm Jackie Brubaker, host and author of That Girl the Podcast, where each week we talk about the coming of age at any age. That Girl the Podcast is based on That Girl the novel, which is on Amazon to download, listen to, or buy the paperback of. You can also follow us on Instagram at That Girl the Podcast and our Patreon page. Well, it's really nice to meet you.
Likewise.
And I love that we're connecting. Are you connecting with a lot of people on Instagram? You're just like, oh, I love your stuff. Let's chat.
Yeah.
So amazing.
It's awesome. And it's an awesome space of like really cool women who are like just having really good conversations and like supporting each other. And
Yeah.
I love it. It's so good.
I'm so happy. It's actually making social media fun again.
Yeah.
And real again, which is so nice. I know that's my whole thing is like, I'm super dolled up right now because I had to film something. I have this show called Holiday Spectacular coming out this week. So I had to like do some pickup shots. And so normally I don't have like extensions in and the whole thing, but
it looks so good though. Did you do your own makeup?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I used to be a makeup artist in TV. So
Ah.
got some things, but
Awesome.
yes.
Oh my God. Well, you look awesome. I just put the red lipstick on because I felt super like washed out. So
I do all the time. Like this is not my natural skin color. I'm much fairer than this. So you are an attorney, and just tell me also for our listeners, for both of our listeners, your listeners know who you are, but tell me about what you do and kind of who you are.
Yeah, so I've been a divorce lawyer for like 18 years now, and
that's impossible. It can't be possible.
No, it's the Zoom filter, like it like wipes away the lines. But I've been doing it for a while, but it's all been specific to Connecticut. So it was probably about a year and a half ago, I went on to a friend's podcast, and she started, and I had never been on a podcast, and she started asking me questions about my own divorce, and like much to my shock, I answered them because I've always been so private. And then when the episode dropped, I got like flooded with people sending me emails and texts being like, oh my God, that's my story too. Like me too. I had shame. I had guilt. I had all of those feelings. And then I realized, I'm like, you know what? We need to start having conversations about this and sort of like lift the veil, and like, there's nothing to be ashamed of. It's like just a moment in your life. So from that, I started my own podcast and created the D Chorus, which is meant to like help educate and empower women going through the process so they don't feel so overwhelmed.
That is amazing. Honestly, I have not been through a divorce, but if I had been or was going through one, I would absolutely think you were just like a godsend. Tell me about the D Course and how that works. Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. So, one thing that lawyers do is their job is to tell you how things get divided. Their job is to tell you like what you can get for alimony or give you options and kind of guide you based on what the law says. But what they don't usually do is talk about mindset and talk about life after divorce and talk about, different options that you have and really how to get through the process. And what I've found in all of these years is that the people who really get stuck in their divorce and can't move past it are the ones whose mindset is kind of off, and they're too busy blaming the other person, and they're too busy saying, my spouse did this to me, and how am I going to move on? And the people who really thrive past their divorce are the ones who are able to say, okay, so this thing happened to me, but now what? Now, how am I going to spin that? And what am I going to do to create the life that I wanted? So I wanted to pull all of the information I had from the legal standpoint and talk about alimony and parenting plans and how to divide personal property, but also do it from the place of, what's the right mindset? How do we talk about reasonable expectations? And like, hey, this isn't the end of the world, because so often divorce feels like the worst thing that's happening to you in that moment, but it's not the end of the world. And it's like this beautiful opportunity to create a life that maybe you always thought you wanted and didn't have the ability to kind of craft. And now you can put it together and reinvent yourself.
I love that. So do you work on that part of it too? Or is it more of just kind of navigating legal and also emotional at the time, but like once it's like over, where do they go?
Yeah, so that's part of it too. And there's a pillar in the course about dating after divorce and really sort of reclaiming your life, because I think that's a big piece of it is it, and that's why people are so overwhelmed through that
Mm,
process, is because they don't know what the other end looks like. And if they can maybe get excited about what's going to happen on the other side, and like recognize like maybe they're in a moment now when it feels awful, but they can be so happy. And
yeah.
that's hard for people to understand, but there is the opportunity for like real joy and happiness and fulfillment. And when someone reaches back and says, you know what, I didn't realize how unhappy I was until I've now experienced this life. Because people get so comfortable in kind of like just the comfort, the complacency, the just okay, everything's fine. And I think
Hmm.
that's kind of a crappy way to live. Like just fine isn't good enough. We only have one short little
Absolutely.
life.
Right. Well, I think that's also just a lot of people right now is maybe I'll pick up that. So what was that? I think that's a lot of people right now. We've all been through kind of a crazy year where a lot of things have been taken away from us, just like divorces, and we're living this brand new life. And kind of what do we do? Or I keep thinking we have a second shot to do what we really want to do, which is exactly what you're talking about. After divorce, it's like you get to live this brand new life, and it can be anything you want it to be. It doesn't have to be
Right.
the death of my marriage and I'll always like carry that on me. Um, but instead, all of us have this really great opportunity to live something. And you and I had been talking about really living in your flow and just following your intuition and being like, oh, okay, all right, we're gonna do that. Like that feels right.
Yeah.
Let's do it. How has that really benefited you in your life?
Oh my gosh.
I mean,
You
which
know,
time really?
yeah, right. Um, Whenever, and I think that just in general, when people are fighting it and they're fighting the flow, that's when they sort of get caught up. And whenever,
Hmm.
like me personally, and I'm sure it's the same way for you, when you let your head sort of talk you out of doing things because your head is telling you all the reasons why you shouldn't do that thing. You shouldn't write the book, start the business, go for the promotion, like all of those
Hmm.
things, then that's when you're really like stifling your growth. But when you just open the doors to it and say, okay, I'm going to do this thing, it is scary as hell, it is uncomfortable, I don't know what's going to happen, but like wait a
Hmm.
second, what if something amazing happens from that? And
Hmm.
it's like I've never had regret for throwing my hat in the ring or trying to do something like really uncomfortable and scary. I've only had regret for like not doing something or thinking that I couldn't do it, and like my own self-limiting beliefs stopped me in my tracks. I mean, do you find
Yeah.
that the same?
Oh, completely. I mean, you're absolutely right. Like people regret the things that they don't do. And it's better to even just take the chance, just take it the shot, like Hamilton, just like shoot your shot and see what happens because maybe there's a couple of things that could happen. It could go really well. It could also teach you like, oh, I don't
Hmm.
actually want this. This
Right.
isn't what I thought it was going to be, or I don't even like doing this, or this was a fun fantasy I saw in a movie. I thought that'd be fun to do once, but like
Right.
not for me. Or it can direct you by proxy into something else like along the way in your learning. And so it's always a good thing.
Yeah.
It's like whether like check this is not working or check like no, I want to do this. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I mean, as difficult as growth is for everyone, it's just if you don't do it, it will happen for you. And then it's not in any of your control, which we don't have
Right.
control, but it's really not in your control anymore. And I think, especially with relationships too. I mean, I've had some very long term, like type marriages, but not
Hmm.
official marriages. And, you're just like, you're in it and you're trying so hard, but then like I think I could be happier, but you're just so scared to like
Yeah.
just say goodbye. And that's with marriage or a relationship or with a job you hate or a
Hmm.
life you're living that isn't you. And I'm telling you, it's like if well, not that I need to tell you, but whoever's listening, it's better to just take that risk, because it's not even a bad risk. It's a risk on you. Like, you're betting
Yeah.
on yourself. And that's also what I think is really big too, is that if you haven't developed a true faith, at least in yourself, to a
Mhm.
higher power, fantastic, but at least to yourself, then you're never going to do it. So start there, start
Yeah.
there and be like, okay, what's really lacking with me? Sometimes it's very difficult to see why you need other people to help you see it. But,
Mhm.
otherwise, you're never going to have the life you truly want. And then something will come in and change it for you. And it's going to lead you probably even further away than from where you wanted to go.
Yeah, so I was on my Peloton bike a couple weeks ago, and
Yes, I'm on Peloton. I love it.
one of the instructors said that the human experience is messy. And that for me was like a mic drop moment, because I'm like, you know what? We live our lives like wanting everything so neat and orderly. And when
Mm,
something doesn't go the way we want, when we don't get the promotion, or we get some sort of rejection, or we get the divorce, or whatever it might be, we like think of that as some horrible thing that happened to us, and we become the victims of it. But what if we look at it like, this is just a moment, and that's a season in time, that, okay, we're doing this thing, and it's a little bit of a dark time, but knowing that if life is messy and it's meant to have those moments, then you know that you're going to come out and you're going to have other moments of celebration and joy, and all of
mhm,
that too. And like, it's all a ride. So and like what you said, it's sad when someone just cuts off any sort of chance of happiness because they don't want to take the risk or roll the dice. And there's just so much exciting opportunity if you do that, and
mhm.
maybe that thing actually works out. And like, imagine that. And like, who cares if it doesn't work out? It's just
Right.
it's a learning opportunity, and so what? You pick yourself up and you do the next thing. But that's like the
Yeah.
journey of what the human experience is to just like
Yeah.
keep going. It's a ride.
And you can always say, hey, I tried it. I did
Yeah.
it, instead of a what if, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's so true. It doesn't even matter like what level it gets to. Like, whether you're like, I want to be a singer, and then you become like the next, Beyonce, like, I mean, that's going to be a
Right.
big, big one. But, I mean, at least, you could actually experience it at the level that you were meant to, and
Right.
have that beautiful chapter in your life. And it could continue as
Mm-hmm.
long as you want it to. I don't know. There's so much opportunity, and people just get so hung up on the excuses they make for themselves
Mm-hmm.
and the expectation they have of other people on them. So
Yeah.
I've been rereading The Power of Now. And have you ever read it?
I
The
have
Power of Now?
not.
It's so good. It's Eckhart Tolle. It's been out for forever. And it's definitely not a book you speed through. You want to
Mm-hmm.
take your time. But, he was talking about ego, and I posted about this yesterday. Basically, when we're wrong, that feels like a little part of our ego dies a little bit, because no one wants to be wrong. We all want to be right. And so, oh crap, I just lost my train of thought. Hold on.
I feel like that happens to me all of the time lately.
Too. Thank you. I was like, oh wait, it's leaving. It's going there. Now it's gone. Um, well, basically I got it. It came back. It came back. Oh my gosh, thank gosh. So our ego is based basically in fear. And it's not like to say like, oh, your ego is important because it's survival, right? Like, we're all humans, like our body knows how to survive. Like, we know what we need to do. We need to eat and take care of ourselves. But the ego is more just like, we want to just keep you in this kind of a fear-based place. And then what he was saying was that the way that we usually view ourselves, before we've done a lot of work, and even after, is the way that we think other people are viewing us. And I just thought that was so profound.
Yeah.
I was like, that's so true. I mean, think of all of the times throughout your life that, especially when you're really young and like a teenager, and you're just like,
Mm-hmm.
everybody thinks this about me. And then your parents are like, nobody cares about you. And you're
Right.
like, no, but I know they do. And of course, people do care, because you're like, growing. But that just continues throughout your whole life of
Yeah.
like, what do these people think of me? So thus,
Mm-hmm.
how should I feel about myself? And when you take big risks on you, when you really develop that faith in yourself, faith in a higher power, just faith that you can try something new, is like what you're saying. It's just your whole life opens up and beautifulness opens.
That's often what holds people up from actually doing the next thing in a relationship that doesn't work for them. And listen, I'm the first to say, like, go to marriage counseling, do the work, but
Mm-hmm.
when we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about when you know that that's not going to work, and so often people don't want to take that next step because they're afraid of what people are going to say. What are my
Yeah.
family going to say? What are my friends going to say? What are people going to think about me? And the
Yeah.
reality is they're not going to think much. They're going to be like, oh, okay. And,
Yeah.
on they go with their life. And, to not make a decision because of that is kind of heartbreaking. And, it goes the
Mm-hmm.
same with like kids too. And it's, people stay put because for the sake of the kids.
Yeah.
And, the reality of it is that they're better off doing something for themselves, and they're better off to be two separate parents who are happy on their own than to be
Mm-hmm.
a united front, a married couple who are
Right.
unhappy. But
Right.
it's so often that ego and that fear keeps them stuck.
Totally. So you went through a divorce. How
Hmm.
long ago was that? And what was that journey like for you? Kind
Oh
of getting there,
yes.
but also getting out, getting out of it.
Yeah, so I've been divorced twice actually. So
Oh, you are a
yeah,
pro.
I'm a pro at this. And so people will say, like, you're a divorce lawyer and like you continue to get married because I'm on my third marriage, because I believe in love. And like
Mm,
I do believe that people aren't perfect, relationships aren't perfect, but you can find a perfect person for you. And
yes.
so, my first marriage is the one that my son was born from, and he's a really good man, and
Yeah.
he is perfect for somebody else. He wasn't
Mm,
perfect for me, and he's remarried and they have a child. And like, it makes me happy to see that he found his place, and then I found mine as well. So
mm,
um it was hard because I was living in a state that did not grow up in. So when I got
mm,
divorced, I didn't have my family around me, I didn't have my friends around me, and it was really lonely. I mean, that first year was probably one of the lowest points of my life. And
right.
yet in that time, I also realized that it was also the period of my time when I became the strongest version of myself. And that's when I started my business. That's when I wrote my first book. Like, those things were happening because it was like, you know what? I have to recreate who I am. I have to rebuild. And I can sit on my bathroom floor and cry every weekend when my son's not with me. I did that
Mhm.
a few weekends in a
We
row.
all do.
Or
Yeah.
I could do something productive with it.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And there was certainly moments of, like, you look back and it's like, oh my God, what did I do? I had, because I was the one who asked for it, I had regret. But the problem was, it wasn't regret that, oh, I still wanted to be married. It was like regret, like, oh my God, where am I in my life right now? And I
Hmm.
was married just
Yes.
5 years, and like, I'm lonely, but that's
Mm,
okay.
mm-hmm.
It's okay to be by yourself. So there was so much growth from that. My second marriage, this is the don't do what I did. Um, we dated, we got married really quickly. It fell apart really quickly.
Mm,
And I don't have any regrets because there was a learning experience within that too. But I also knew myself well enough to know that really early on, that this was not going to work. And the red flags were there. And I said, you know what?
mm,
As embarrassing as it was, and as almost ashamed as I was to have to share this information with family and friends.
yeah.
And again, it was like the ego,
Mm,
saying, what are people going to think? But it was the right thing to do. And had I not done that, I wouldn't be in the relationship I'm in now, which is the one for me. So, and from that, I think it's not everyone is right for everyone. And it's
mm,
okay when something is just not good enough,
yeah.
or just fine, to say that, that's not enough for me. And you should feel fulfilled. And, your
Yeah.
partner should be with you in the journey every step of the way. And sometimes it takes a couple trials and errors to figure it out. This is all a journey.
It totally is. I mean, yeah, like now, so I was with someone for 4 years and we broke up 2 years ago. And after we broke up, I felt like I had lost time. I was like, oh
Mhm.
my gosh. Oh my gosh. So I started in my early 30s and now I'm not in my early 30s.
Yeah.
Like, whoa. And I felt like, oh, I'm going to meet him right away. Like he's going to just show up. Like there's my husband right there.
Mhm.
And so I really kind of went in with this sort of like desperate feeling of like, I've got a date, I've got a date, I've got to make up for all this lost time. And then I quickly realized, very, very quickly realized that my whole essence was like, no, we need
Yeah.
to be alone right now. We need to
Mhm.
just decompress and just not have to worry about anyone except ourselves. And I'm
Right.
so glad that that happened. And it's interesting too, I think, once you've been through, some marriages and some relationships
Mhm.
that are very serious, you really start to see so quickly the red flags and
Yep.
even not red flags, just incompatibilities on a marriage level or a long-term
Yeah.
relationship level that you would never have thought about before, but now you're like, oh gosh, you're a wonderful human being, kind of like your first
Mhm.
husband. You're a wonderful human being, but at that time you wouldn't have known, like, in a relationship, however, these
Right.
things aren't going to work. And you just wouldn't have known it at that age, but time and experience and all that. And so now it's like, I meet great guys and I swear I almost feel so protected from the universe, like helping me, because I'm like, oh, there's the stuff. And it's not about being picky. It's just
Yeah.
about being so aware of who you are, what you need, and what you deliver, like what you have to give,
Yes.
and just being like, you're a great person. This is not for us. And it's so freeing. And that's why, like, I really do feel like my husband's very close. I can just feel it. I'm like, it's just a matter of like going through a few more of you guys. Hopefully. That's what I'm manifesting right now. I'm like,
Yeah.
just all of that out there.
But you know what? I love that because we so often like turn off that intuition and we
Oh
don't
yeah.
listen to it. And like we need to be listening to every little sign. And because it
Yeah.
is not lying to us, like it's there
Mm-mm.
for a reason. And if we really like tap into it, you'll learn early on. And, I think that had I tapped into that the second time around, I would have never gotten married to begin with. But I
Mhm.
let my head talk me into something that, and it was kind of pushing down the intuition. But
Absolutely.
it there's a reason why, like they say it's a red flag or they call it, there's a reason why there's terms for that and people talk
Hmm.
about that is because it's a real thing. And it's so important to know what your non-negotiables are. What
Absolutely.
is an absolute, like, no, this is never going to work. I'm not going to try to fit someone into a box of what I think to make
Yeah.
it work just so I'm not alone.
Right. Or like looking at their potential. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Don't
such
do
a,
that.
don't ever do that. Just
Yeah.
never
It
ever
never
be like,
works.
it never does. Oh, he can change. I'll just push him a
Yeah.
little. No, he won't.
No.
That's who he is forever. And that's
Right.
also, I think too, just like having older, wiser, it's so important just for anybody listening. Like, really don't believe that you can change someone, but also when you fall in love with someone, we're all human, we're all
Yes.
flawed, we are very imperfect. So some of the great perfect things that you see in your partner are there, and that's great, but like, there are other things that are going to pop up, not even in the beginning, but will show up
Hmm.
much later, and you're going to be like, oh, fascinating. And you just have to, like, if you're really in it for the long haul, you have to be like, okay, now they're really into, like, I don't know, bodybuilding or something crazy that they never work. And you're like,
Yeah.
that's my partner. And I'm just gonna let him or her be who they are. And I
Right.
think a lot of people um go into relationships, go into marriages thinking that people are never going to change who they are
Right.
too. And then that's a huge wake up call of like, but you're not the person I married. Well, of course you're not. Like,
Right.
people are constantly evolving, hopefully, which is what we were talking about basically, is evolving. And when they do, you've got to be like, all right, I made a commitment to you to just accept that, unless it's in a negative,
Right.
addictive kind
Right.
of place, of course. But I think that's a huge reason why people break up too, is they're just like, I don't like this.
Well, and I think that that's so important because it goes to, you come to a relationship as individuals, and you should complement each other, but not complete each other. And I always hated like Jerry Maguire, like that you complete me. I'm always like,
Yeah.
no, like it shouldn't be a completion. It should be a compliment. And so
Yeah.
you're right. Like your interests, your passions, your whatever it is will change and evolve and grow. And your partner should be um, willing to allow you to do that. And you do that for that person too, is allow them to, encourage their growth and support
Yeah.
their growth. So I think that that's a really important point.
What about the opposite? What if you're in a relationship with someone and they're not growing and you are?
Mm.
How does that work, in your opinion?
Yeah, so I just did an interview with this woman who actually talked about that. And she worked with clients who she was all about manifesting and chakras and all of that. And
My
she was
people.
talking, yeah, I know, right? And so she was talking about when exactly that question that you asked is when someone grows and the other person doesn't. And she actually described it as, her name is Dr. Ellison J. K. So I'll give her credit for this. But she talked about how sometimes partners will grow with you. So like when you start to grow, they'll match you,
Mm,
and they're a little bit behind, a couple steps behind, but they're kind of on that journey with you. And then you have other circumstances where the other person just absolutely will not grow at all. And then you have to make that decision if that person is hindering you, and do you need them to grow with you at all? Maybe you can
mm,
continue to grow and you don't need them to like catch up with you. And that's such a personal decision as to where
mhm.
you are in your journey and where that person is. And, is there a block that can be penetrated, or is it something that is just so insurmountable that you have no choice but to go your own separate ways?
Right. That's such a huge one. And that's a very hard decision to make, or even conclusion to come to,
Mm-hmm.
you
Oh,
know?
yeah.
Ah, fascinating. Let's talk about the flow for 2021 and what
Mm.
kind of flow you want to be in,
Oh.
what kind of year you want to have, what you're already being given of like what you want to do this next year.
I am so excited for 2021. I know that 2020 was what it was, and
Yeah.
you can use all kinds of adjectives for it. But if there's going to be a silver lining in that year, I think it was really it gave us the space to assess and evaluate and say, like, okay, what's not good enough for me anymore, and what's next,
Mhm.
and what can I change? Um, and I did some of that, and excited for the work that happened over 2020 because of that. And 2021 is a continuation of that, but with so much more flow. Because
Right.
I hustled on 2020, like I hustled, I grinded, like it was a very much of like that masculine energy. And going into 2021, like I'm so excited just to let things kind of roll now. um,
Mhm.
Oh my gosh. I just like, I see so much more connection with people like you who are in this space and doing, this high vibing work with other women who are like
Mhm.
fixing each other's crowns and lifting each other up and elevating. Oh my gosh. I just like, it's amazing. It's like such a trickle effect when you allow that energy in. It's like magnifies, and
Yeah.
it's just, so everything that I have coming in 2021 is based on that. It's all about vibrations and energy, and all the details and the specifics are going to fall into place.
Mhm.
But I'm being flexible about it, and I'm letting kind of things sort of just go, and they pivot when they need to and bend, and just rolling a little bit with it and allowing the universe to kind of guide the what's next.
Right. Ugh, I agree. I think I was very masculine this year as well, like
Uh-huh.
really hustled. Um, and I came out with my book and then the podcast, and then I like am starting a coaching business. I did not go into 2020 thinking I was starting a coaching business. I really didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, yeah, it's just amazing. When you're just given those hits of intuition and you just say yes, like,
Yeah.
okay, this feels really right. Or when you, because something came up just a few months ago where I was like, oh, maybe I should investigate this. And I started to, and I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. And then everything started to feel wrong. And I
Mm-hmm.
had a really amazing conversation with someone, and everything she told me about this thing I was interested in was exactly what I needed. And again, it's like when you're so in alignment, like those
Yeah.
conversations happen because you're
Yes.
like, hey, could I talk to you about this? And it just so happened that she had time to talk, and she never does, but she had time to like help me not do that. And I was like,
Yeah.
thank you. Because, you know, I know something I've worked on my entire life, and I'm trying really hard to like not do it, is and I think a lot of people can suffer from this too, is that you just want to be like secure. You know, you want to
Mhm.
do like the right thing, the logical thing. And
Right.
so all the stuff that makes you happy and makes your heart sing, you're like, well, that's nice and all, but like, this is really what I need to be doing. And like,
Mm-hmm.
that's true. Like work, you know, normal things like that, sure. But I think that's why so many of us don't go for what we really want to do, because
Right.
we'll never make the time for it. We'll talk ourselves out of it. We're all very smart women. We know how to talk ourselves out of things.
Oh yeah.
You know, we're going to be like, oh, I'm going to give you all the reasons why you shouldn't
Yeah.
do this. But then when you are saying yes, and you are just like, I'm going to trust, I keep coming back to this whole like having faith in yourself, having
Mm-hmm.
faith in a higher power. It's just, it's so amazing how even if you kind of veer a little off to the side, it's like, no, no, no,
Mm-hmm.
no, over here. And you're like, oh, cool, thank you. And you don't have to make a huge mistake. It's just a little like curiosity. Oh, cool, cool. We're back here. We're good. And it's
Yeah.
just, it's amazing because the alignment in your life will just be so much stronger than anything else. All of the negativity and all of the doubts and all of the questions.
Yeah, and it's like even these conversations, like I feel like every podcast interview I do, it's that same like when I in the call, it's I feel good, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited and inspired. Like there's
Yeah.
so many amazing people like yourself doing this and just bringing so much like I'm going to hang up from this call and I'm going to be like, yes, like now you know, it's just kind of opened up the inspiration
Mm-hmm.
and that's like momentum. And so it's the
Mm-hmm.
momentum of keep doing that and keep doing more of it, and it feels good and I'm going to keep going. um
Right.
and you know, and see where it takes me rather than cutting it off because your head is telling you it's not practical.
Right.
You know, so
Right.
I'm throwing out being reasonable in 2021.
Yes, I'll second that. I'll second that. Oh my gosh, this has been such a great conversation. And I feel the same way. Like, oh gosh, it's so nice to come out of conversations like this and be like, boom, let's just go do the world. Let's just like do it. And like, you're so
Hmm.
inspired and so lifted up. Your vibration is up. And it's so nice to talk with you and get to know you
Oh,
more.
absolutely. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. It's so funny how social media has like brought people together. And I've
Mm-hmm.
always been like an anti-social media person. I'm like, I'm not doing it. I don't like it. You know,
Right.
I like to keep things to myself. And then all
Yeah.
of a sudden I started doing it and I'm like, oh my God, there's a world of amazing people out there who are
Yeah.
want to connect. And that's,
Yeah.
you know, it's amazing. It's incredible. So that's another gift of 2020, because when I started 2020, I was not doing this. I was not in that space. I was not connecting like that.
Yeah, that's amazing. See, you found your way. You found your way. You didn't even know you were looking for it, and there it was.
There, right.